In this video, we're going to discuss the basic anatomy of the nervous system. This system provides communication among all other organ systems, monitors internal and external changes, and develops proper responses. For ease of understanding, the nervous system is structurally subdivided into the central nervous system, or CNS, which includes the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, which includes nerves and ganglia outside the CNS. Watch more videos in the EasyAnatomy app. With EasyAnatomy, you can learn much easier and faster. We provide a comprehensive video library, related PDF notes, and atlas sections with engaging flashcards. Download EasyAnatomy from the link in the description. The peripheral nervous system is made up of two functional units: the somatic, that controls voluntary actions, and the autonomic, that controls the involuntary activities. Both the central and peripheral parts of the nervous system consist of nervous tissue, which in turn is formed by neurons, or nerve cells, and neuroglia. Neurons can receive, generate, and transmit electrical impulses, providing communication with other neurons as well as with effector cells, such as muscle cells. Neurons consist of the cell body and two types of extensions, or processes, that arise from it. Dendrites are short processes. Each neuron may have many such projections. They receive incoming signals from other neurons. The second type, axons, are long. Each neuron has only one axon. It is used to transmit impulses to other neurons. Some axons are covered with a layer of lipids and proteins that speed up the conduction of nerve impulses. This structure is called the myelin sheath. The electrical impulse eventually reaches the distal parts of the axon, called the axon terminals. They meet with the dendrite, the body, or with the axon of another neuron, and this contact site is called a synapse. Depending on the location of a neuron within the nervous system, the number of its processes may vary. Multipolar neurons have several dendrites and a single axon. Bipolar neurons have one large dendrite and one axon. Unipolar neurons contain only one process. According to many researchers, this type of neuron is only present during embryogenesis. Pseudo-unipolar neurons have one process that arises from the body and immediately divides in a T-shaped manner. One part of this projection acts as an axon, and the other acts as a dendrite. Axon-less neurons contain many processes, but the axon is so short that it cannot be distinguished from dendrites. Neuroglia, or glial cells, are the other cell type found in the nervous system. There are several types of neuroglia. They function as a maintenance staff who support and nourish neurons. Neurons and neuroglia are discussed in more detail in the relevant topics. Alright, now let us discuss the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The main role of the central nervous system is to coordinate and to integrate nerve impulses that arrive from the periphery. This provides the functioning of our muscles and internal organs and allows us to think, learn, and experience emotions. The brain consists of several large parts. These include the cerebral hemispheres, the diencephalon, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. The brainstem includes the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. The spinal cord divides into 31 segments. Starting superiorly, there are 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal segments. Next, let's discuss two different colored areas of the nervous tissue: gray matter and white matter. You are most likely already familiar with these terms. Gray matter, histologically, is made up of the neuron cell bodies. In the brain, gray matter forms the cortex and subcortical nuclei. In the spinal cord, it is shaped like a butterfly and has two major divisions: the anterior horn and the posterior horn. White matter histologically consists of the processes of neurons, and the already mentioned myelin sheath gives it its white color. In the central nervous system, axon bundles united by a specific function are called tracts or pathways. The components of the PNS are similar to those of the CNS, but the terminology used is slightly different. In the PNS, a cluster of neuron bodies is called ganglion, and axon bundles are called nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves and 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Cranial nerves exit the brain and innervate various structures of the head and neck. These nerves can be divided into sensory, motor, and mixed. Spinal nerves arise directly from the spinal cord via two routes, the anterior and the posterior route. The posterior routes contain sensory or afferent fibers that transmit sensory information from the periphery to the posterior horn of the spinal cord. The anterior routes contain motor or efferent fibers that transmit motor information from the anterior horn of the spinal cord to the organs, for instance, skeletal muscles. Remember that afferent fibers arrive and efferent fibers exit the spinal cord. Both roots of the spinal cord merge to form a mixed spinal nerve, which has both motor and sensory fibers. Each mixed spinal nerve almost immediately divides into two branches, the anterior ramus and the posterior ramus. Since both the anterior and posterior rami emerge from the mixed spinal nerves, they carry both sensory and motor fibers. Anterior rami, heading to different areas of our body, give rise to multiple nerves and nerve plexuses. Each segment of the spinal cord innervates a particular area of the body. If we're talking about a specific area of the skin, it is called a dermatome. And if we're talking about a skeletal muscle or some part of it, it is called a myotome. There are dermatome maps which are used in the diagnosis of sensory processing disorders. Alright, here's a quick summary. The nervous system can be structurally subdivided into the central and peripheral nervous system. The CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord, while the PNS consists of ganglia and nerves. Histologically, the nervous system is made up of nervous tissue, which is formed by neurons and neuroglia. A neuron consists of the body and processes. The short processes are called dendrites, and the long processes are called axons. The nerves that exit the spinal cord are called the spinal nerves, and the nerves exiting the brain are called cranial nerves. The spinal nerves are formed by two roots: the posterior root, which contains sensory fibers, and the anterior root, which contains motor fibers. Each spinal nerve has two rami or branches, posterior and anterior rami. Functionally, spinal nerves are mixed nerves, which means they are made up of both sensory and motor fibers.